Today, I'm going to test my max heart rate on the track. If you listened to my last video, I spoke about the fact that I thought in the last year I've been overtraining. And because I've been overtraining, I need to limit how hard I push myself in training, because I'm someone that's very motivated. So it's very easy for me to push it too far and get really caught up in paces. And for that reason, I need to find a way of limiting how hard I push myself in training, because I'm somebody who is very motivated and finds it very easy to push it too far in a training session. And if you consistently push it too far in training sessions, then it eventually catches up with you. And that's what I think happened to me last year. So recently I've been using heart rate as a limit in my training sessions so that I don't push it too far. And by that I mean setting a number that I can't go over in the training session so that I hit the right kind of effort. So far I think that's been going really well, and training has been definitely more controlled. But that also got me on to thinking, what is my max heart rate? Because if you read literature out there, you can determine LT2 or LT1 based off your max heart rate. So I want to know my max heart rate because in a few weeks I'm going to go in a lab and get it tested, as well as my lactate thresholds. But that got me on to thinking, is there not a way of doing it outside the lab, because the lab is costly, and in the end I would like that maybe some of my clients could do it in a way that doesn't involve going in the lab. And there are videos out there of people who have done max heart rate testing, or they've spoken about it, but it doesn't really seem like anyone actually did a max heart rate test other than in the lab. So the first place I started was formulas, because there are many out there and it's the easiest thing to do. So I tried a few out, 3, I'll put them on the screen, but my max heart rate from those 3 equations varied by 5 beats per minute, with the lowest being 180 and the highest being 185. And yeah, I'm really aware that max heart rate will vary based on different factors such as size, age. So if you can't use a formula, then what's the next best option? And that is to do field tests, and that involves running hard. There are different protocols out there, but basically think about it like this. If it's easy to test your resting heart rate by laying down and relaxing, but to test your max heart rate, you're going to have to push yourself pretty much to your limit. And maybe that's also off-putting and also not suitable for people that are just getting into running. I looked into then the different field tests out there, and there are quite a few. People seem to have their own different opinions on how best to get your max heart rate out on a run. But I would say the main thing is that a lot of them want you to use a hill because it's easy to get your heart rate elevated on a hill. Now, I live in Amsterdam and there are no hills, so already that's going to be quite difficult. So then I thought, could I then do it on a treadmill where I pick an incline? But if you're not used to running on an incline, how do you pick the right incline? Because one of the key aspects of doing a field test is that you don't push yourself too hard too soon, because then you're not going to give your body long enough time to get your heart rate up to the max. You're going to cook yourself too quick. And that was also a bit off-putting, because if I was to recommend that to somebody else who is less experienced with running, they are going to struggle with that. I will put some links below for the different protocols that I found. I don't actually know what my max heart rate is, but I have an idea because I have a very good idea through training what my heart rate gets to at different paces, such as marathon, half marathon, and then up to 5k or faster. And I'm going to guess that it's maybe around 178. As I told you, the formulas think around 180 to 185. But I've actually never done a max heart rate test, so I don't know. And why not give it a go? And at the same time, the protocol is, although it's very hard, it's quite short, so afterwards I can do some more speed work and then get an overall session in. But first I'm going to get ready and then get down the track. When I'm at the track, I'll explain the protocol to you, and then yeah, let's give it a go and see what happens. Complete side note, but does anyone else struggle with the arm strap moving around when you're training? So what I do now is I tape it so that it doesn't move. I don't need to worry about it anymore. Yes, let us know in the comments below. The protocol for determining your max heart rate is then you do 20-minute progressive run. So I've used running from home to do that. That was around 15 minutes. I'm now going to do some strides and some other drills to get warmed up. And then after that, you need to do 3 times 1 minute at around 3 kilometer pace. I don't really train that much at that effort, so we'll have to see what that's like. But in theory, you are gradually increasing your heart rate, and there's a minute rest between those. After that, you have another minute rest, and it's 4 minutes all out. But in the first 2 minutes, you want to not overdo it and save yourself for the last 2 minutes, and that's when you will really go as fast as you can. Okay, that was the first one done. Heart rate 149. Got spikes on because the track's really wet, and I just feel more confident running when it's slippy and spikes, especially trying to run at fast speed like this. Second one done, 155, 158. 1 minute jog and then all out. Okay, that didn't work at all. My max heart rate there was 166 or 167. Okay, that didn't work at all. My max heart rate there was 166 or 167. Good morning, just out on my weekly long run, Sunday morning, and I'm doing 30 kilometres. Quite easy for at least the first 15, and I'm going to progress down, get faster, and then last 6 kilometres is going to be around 10 kilometres slower than marathon pace, so nothing too hard. It's quite early in the training block, like week 4, so don't want to be doing too much too soon. But I wanted to talk about the max heart rate test that I did, because it didn't work out. So, and after I'd finished the max heart rate test, I had some opinions, but they were mostly based on the fact that it didn't go very well and being disappointed. My first point is that it just went wrong. I messed up the protocol. It said 20-minute progression run, and I just did a warm-up basically down to the track, which sounds stupid now because progression run obviously means running faster than easy pace, but in my defence, most of my easy runs are a progression run because I start so slow, and then as I get warmed up I get into it. So that was a mistake. So really the whole test was messed up because of that. It's so cold out here today on the run, it's -2. Even the water's frozen. My face is freezing. Anyway. The second point about doing the max heart rate test is that I wouldn't recommend trying to do it in the middle of your training week, because you're tired and you need definitely some kind of few days rest before, so you feel mentally and physically ready to push yourself. And I don't really feel like I was ready to do that. So even though this test was messed up by me, I still wonder whether I could have really got my heart rate up to where I needed it to be. The third thing I learned is that most of the protocols said to either use a treadmill or a hill, and I can now see why, because it's easier to get your heart rate up on a hill. Anybody who's run up a hill would know that, and I think that is definitely the protocol that I would use in the future if I was to try this again, to do it on a treadmill. And the additional benefit there is that it would be warm in the gym. When I trained on the track it was freezing, so
that's making it even more difficult to get your heart rate up to where you want it to be. And my final conclusion is, would I recommend doing it? No, I don't think so. I think it's very difficult to achieve, and I think you would be better off just doing some races, wearing a heart rate monitor, and then being able to determine heart rates that fit your thresholds or efforts. You're going to learn a lot more from that. So overall, whilst it was worth a try and I did mess it up, I don't think I would be doing it again, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone to try and do. I think there's other ways of trying to figure these things out. So in the next video I'm going to be in the lab getting my thresholds tested, so see you in the next one.